Let's see if he even sees me.
Don't turn, don't turn, don't turn. Hey guys, it's Steve from Scooter King, and as you saw, we got hit a couple weeks ago while we were actually in the bike lane and in the crosswalk at the same time. And I want to talk a little bit about that in this video, and how even though you might think you're completely protected, if you actually get hit and you're in the bike lane and the crosswalk, you might still be completely f***ed. So as you can see, this is a pretty straightforward intersection, plenty of signage. It's well marked for both the bike lane and the crosswalk. So there's not really anything terribly unique about this other than the fact that when you're in the bike lane, the truth of it is a lot of motorists going by at high speeds on a highway like this, and then at the last minute making the decision to turn into this particular intersection on the right-hand side are simply not going to see you. You're going to be in their blind spot in their right mirror. So I think this is one of the most frustrating things about being, you know, an electric scooter rider, or really any personal electric vehicle. So whether you're riding PEVs, you know, you're riding scooters, it doesn't really matter. But anything like that, you're really a lot more exposed than you think. And all it takes is just a driver coming by, you know, to clip you while you're going, you know, even at moderate speeds. And you can do a pretty significant amount of damage to yourself and your scooter. So in this particular case, you know, we were only really going about 25 miles an hour, or even a little less, right there in the bike lane, and slowing down as we came up to the turn. And as we did, it was all it took just for the driver at the last minute to change his mind and dart in to try to beat us to the turn. And that's really a lot of this. I don't think it's so much about people doing things deliberately as that doing things at the last minute. They're, you know, trying to make decisions on the fly in a fluid circumstance, and they end up either panicking or they get trapped in traffic.
I think one of the biggest things about being on, you know, these like big residential streets like these that are kind of part highway, part street, is just never really knowing, you know, people coming up behind you and stuff. Like this guy coming up behind me. Let's see if he even sees me.
Don't turn, don't turn, don't turn. Oh, Jesus. Especially if you're riding in a lot of traffic. You know, in this particular case, we were actually riding on a fairly calm street in the bike lane at low speeds. And I think that's probably as big of an issue, if not more, is, you know, in places like these, for example, roundabouts and stuff where there's a lot of traffic going on. Even if you're in the bike lane, it doesn't guarantee you any real kind of, you know, safety, you know, or insurance or guarantees. So after everything was all cleaned up and I kind of stitched everything or taped everything onto the scooter and finally pushed it home, I ended up with a punctured hydraulic front brake line, and the right brake lever was damaged, the front brake bracket was damaged. Ended up with a bent rotor, the handlebars and the handlebar bracket was bent. There was two side running lights on one side that were out and one side running light on the other. The kickstand was bent and the rear foot plate was tore up. So all in all, it was a little over $700 in total damage to the scooter. And because of the weight of the scooter, unless you live right around the corner from the factory, the onus to repair it is pretty much all on you. Once you get everything all put back together and all your information is exchanged and you finally get home, and you finally get that call from the driver's insurance agency, they're going to seem like your very best friend. This is the introductory period where they want you as off guard as they can get you. They want you thinking about that brand new scooter you've had your eye on that you believe the insurance company is going to pay for. But the next call you get from the insurance company is going to change all of that in a hurry. The next and far more important of the two phone calls is going to be the one where they record your statement. And this is where they officially take your recollection of the events and go through everything. From here, the insurance company will do their own investigation. They'll reach out to any eyewitnesses that might have been part of this, as well as the other party. And then they'll make a determination. At this point, the tone of everything changes dramatically. It turns out that eyewitness testimony can be worth a lot more than you think, even more than video, as video can be subjective sometimes, or it doesn't cover a wide enough angle to give everyone a broad view of what actually happened in real time. To further complicate things, that eyewitness testimony might be biased. That might include past experiences they've had. Maybe they have an axe to grind against scooterists in the first place. And on top of that, the insurance company is doing their own investigation. This is literally the definition of the fox guarding the hen house. It's at this moment you're introduced to one of the grittiest, ugliest little insurance company legal loopholes in the business, known as modified comparative negligence. Most states adopt some version of this, or they'll adopt something known as contributory negligence, which has similar legal loopholes. Long story short, in modified comparative negligence, if the insurance company can make it look as if you have 51% or more of the blame, they don't have to pay you one dime. In larger cases where there's a lot of property damage and a lot of personal injury, it's a lot harder for insurance companies to pull off these kinds of insurance company shenanigans because there's big money and teams of lawyers involved. What they're trying to do here is thin the herd. They want you to take them to court, knowing you're not likely to go up against a major corporation, especially insurance, with teams of lawyers on your own dime. And of course, most of the time they're right.
So I think the thing that surprised me the most, honestly, was how far the insurance companies will go to really keep from holding up their end of the bargain. You know, if their driver darts in front of you or smashes into you or whatever, they will do an amazing amount of stuff to split the liability. And, you know, if you've never been in this circumstance before and you never experienced it before, it can be pretty surprising, and in our case, you know, almost shocking to what lengths they'll go to keep from really having to pay anything. And, you know, insurance companies aren't my favorite subject under the best of circumstances, and this is no different. So in this particular case, long story short, the driver's liability is what covers the damage they do to something or someone else. So if they hit somebody else's property, they hit someone else, that liability insurance coverage is supposed to cover that. And if they can claim that it's at least 50% or more fault of you, they can, in many times, pay considerably less based on a percentage, or in some cases, nothing whatsoever. You heard that right. And in certain cases, if they can show that your liability as, you know, a scooterist is 50% or higher, they can actually, in some cases, get out of having to pay you any damages or damages to your scooter at all. Pretty shitty, but the reality of it is, this is a fairly common tactic. And what they're trying to do here is they're trying to force you into suing them. So that's the plan here. And of course, the reason why is that if it's not a lot of money or it's not significant damages, their thinking is that the average person is not going to want to go through, you know, the exorbitant cost of taking an insurance company to court and, you know, toe-to-toe-ing it with their incredibly experienced shyster lawyers. So they can just arbitrarily say, well, based on our information and, you know, the scant bit of investigation we've done, we've determined that, you know, you're at least partially, if not half the way at fault. And this is what exonerates them from basically most of the financial liability. It's a shitty little game that insurance companies play, but they all play it. Some are worse than others, but the ones that do play it are in it to win. So as you can see, and as we found out the hard way, you may not have as much protection, and worse, not get paid at all for some of your damages to your scooter and your gear if you get hit, even if you're in the bike lane, and in our case, in the crosswalk at the same time. So this is really just kind of a quick lesson on how far insurance companies will go to keep from actually paying you or paying your damages. So the lesson here is keep your head on a swivel and always gear up and make sure that, you know, you're riding as safe as you can, and always expect the other guy to do something incredibly ridiculous at the last minute for no reason.
Hey guys, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. If you learned something or if this was helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It helps keep a young channel like this going, and it helps me make more videos like this. Get out, have a great time, stay safe, gear up. We'll catch you guys in the next video.